Story from MeanLogic. Just a bit of background info. I'm a technology industry professional, currently working on teaching vehicles how to drive themselves. In order for this technology to work, it uses a mix of radar and LiDAR to read the world around it, build a 3D representation of what it sees, and then categorize it before mapping it out in real time. Essentially, it constructs the world around it constantly to learn, adapt, and self-navigate from point A to point B, and beyond. As part of this process, we often send out mapping vehicles to pre-map the area and/or determine if the area is a viable location for such a vehicle to operate in. A process we typically do at night because there is way less traffic on the road and we have ample time to correct any issues that may occur. Last year, while one of our vehicles was out and about, it happened to enter into a cemetery one evening. We don't map cemeteries, but we will sometimes map the entrance/driveways of some locations in order to provide the vehicle additional options should it run into something we'd rather avoid, i.e. road construction, police activity, or an accident. In any case, the vehicle wound up going into the cemetery. A few moments later, the technician watching what the vehicle is picking up goes, "Hey man, are you seeing this?" As I stated, the vehicle will scan and categorize what it picks up in its area of operation. I look at the screen, and although the vehicle was picking up and categorizing pedestrians in the area, there was no one there to see. Even the categorization was fluctuating from pedestrian to unknown to even animal. We'd see them pop up on the LiDAR the vehicle was using to scan the area, and the trajectory they were headed in at the time, look up at the real-time cameras, and nothing. Both of us are natural skeptics, but both of us have also had our experiences with things we couldn't explain, so it's a healthy skepticism. We kept looking for ways to debunk what it was we were seeing, but there was no explanation we could think of. The vehicle was clearly picking something up on its LiDAR that we could just not see in the cameras. This went on for several minutes, and long enough that we called others over to verify what we were seeing. Whatever the vehicle was picking up that night was something that we just couldn't see with the naked eye. Story from Rebecca P. So this event happened about 15 years ago, when my sister was living with me. My boyfriend at the time was staying overnight, which he didn't do often. Sometime in the night, I felt myself wake up but couldn't move. I'm not sure if I was fully awake, if it was sleep paralysis or what. Immediately after I became aware, I felt myself being pushed off the bed and found myself on the left side of the bed, on the ground, unable to rise. I tried several times to get back up into bed, but felt this weight on me, preventing me. Finally, I was able to haul myself back up next to my then boyfriend, who was still sleeping. Terrified, I shook him awake and urgently whispered that something was trying to push me out of bed, but that I didn't know what it was. Half awake, he said, "You're scaring me." I said, "I'm scaring myself." We both laid back at that point and attempted to go back to sleep, and I felt a weight on me again, preventing me from moving. It was heavy and trying to push me off again. I was able to turn to my then boyfriend again and call out his name. He turned away from me on his side to go back to sleep, and didn't appear he had heard me. With effort, I pushed myself half up and called him again. As I was looking at him, still sleeping, I heard a distinctive sound coming from him that sounded like the low drone you hear when monks chant. A low voice saying something but nothing, speaking in tongues, coming from my then boyfriend. It started out low and got louder over the course of about 5 seconds. He never moved, so I never saw his mouth. Freaked out, I laid back down and eventually went back to sleep. I was still totally affected by what had happened when I woke up the next morning, and I told my then boyfriend and sister the whole story. He thought it was pretty wild, but remembered nothing. My sister was spooked because she said her bedside clock stopped in the night. It stopped at exactly 3 a.m. I never encountered this type of situation again, but did see a spirit a few years later in the same bed and apartment. Story from Reddit user NotKuansToast. When I was a kid, every year for the Easter school holidays, my family would go out camping on some land that my grandparents own. The best thing about it was having somewhere to legally ride our motorbikes. My older brother and I would often jump on our bikes and head off riding around the property together, racing and making up silly games, etc. One year, we were both out riding, but had gone separate ways, so at this time I was on my own with nobody else anywhere in sight. Suddenly I hear a voice say my name. I heard it clearly over the sound of the two-stroke bike engine, and it didn't sound muffled through my helmet. It sounded more like it was being spoken directly into my ear, or as if I had a headphone or earbud in my ear. At first I disregarded it, thought it was some strange interaction of the exhaust sound, the ear cavity of the helmet, and the wind blowing across the helmet visor. Basically some kind of auditory illusion. But I heard it again, and again. A woman's voice calmly saying my name as if to get my attention. It would occur when I was riding in one small area and nowhere else. I'd say the area was a radius of 50 to 75 meters. It was an area we had to pass through to get from camp to the motorbike trails and back. The voice persisted for days in the same spot, and it increased its vocabulary. It would sometimes say my name, it would sometimes say, "Come home," and it would sometimes say, "Come home to me," my name. It started to creep me out, and I would feel anxious when approaching the area where it would happen. After a few days, and me not saying anything about it to anyone, I was out riding with my brother, and he signaled for me to stop and pulled up right in the middle of the area I'd been hearing the voice. He turned his bike off and removed his helmet, so I did the same. We then had a short conversation where he asked if I'd been hearing anything weird, and if so, what. I told him I'd been hearing a voice. He went pale. I described the voice, and he said that it matched what he was hearing. I asked what the voice was saying to him, and he told me it would say his name and call him to come home to it. We rode back and told our parents. Dad came out riding in the area with us. He didn't hear anything, and we didn't hear anything while he was there either. We kept hearing the voice over the next few days, always saying the same things. I remember this happening just the one year, but I brought it up with my brother recently, and he seems to think it also happened in the same place the following year. Story from WhyAmISoFuckingGood. I haven't shared this with anyone till now. My experience was terrifying. Here it is. My cousin Jack died last month. I didn't care, though. In fact, me and other cousins were happy that he was dead. He is utter trash. When we were in our teens, he tried to kill me because I told my mom, who in turn informed his mother, that he was doing drugs. So, later, he convinced my other cousin to move in with him after she was kicked out of her house. Then, for the first week, he pimped her for buying drugs and also took turns in banging her. She was horrified by what was happening around her, and there's no way she could have contacted us as he took her mobile and Mac away from her. She escaped, but trauma stayed with her, and later she completed suicide. Everyone in the family came to know about the suicide, but nobody pressed charges because his parents begged not to. His mom had a terminal illness, and she begged us all not to take away her son. Last month, he OD'd and died. I didn't even attend his funeral. So coming to last week, I had a weird dream where he appeared and threatened to kill me. He said he came to kill me. I was scared to death. In my dream, I went back to my home and took my dad's revolver. And when he was banging on my door, I shot a few rounds at the door. And after some silence, I was relieved, but again there was a heavy bang at my door. And it got broken, and I don't remember how, but I tricked him from room to room and ran outside with my gun. After he came to know I was outside, he came straight to me and I shot a few rounds at him, It didn't hurt, I guess, but he was kinda trying to avoid getting shot, and in the whole fiasco, he escaped into my neighbor's home while I was shooting continuously. No idea how the revolver kept on having continuous bullets after more than 30-40 shots at him. Then I heard he was throwing tantrums loudly, and he was throwing things in their house, and then I hear a big scream, still in the dream, from the neighbor's home. And with that sudden shock combined with heavy sweating, I was awake. I couldn't sleep at all. Everything felt so real in the dream. I thought it was just a nightmare, but the next morning I came to know that my neighbor's wife was dead. I couldn't brush it off as a coincidence because she was in her early 30s, perfectly fine, no complications. She was a health-conscious person and tomboy type, and even the coroner couldn't confirm cause of death. I confirmed if anything happened with my other cousins. They said nothing weird happened, but they believed in my experience and told me that they knew that Jack always hated me for ratting him out. When he was alive, he occasionally told them that if it ever came to an end, the last thing that would make him happy is killing me. Thank you for listening. You can probably handle another horror story, right?